I'm Margaret. I hope you've had a good week. I've been making little fudge cakes this week. They have just the right amount of sweetness, and in the centre of each cake there's a lovely fudgy bit. Let's get stuck in, shall we? So don't forget to preheat your oven before you begin. It gives your oven a chance to get to the right temperature by the time you need it. I do like these flat scales we have for baking now. They really are one of the best changes I've seen in baking over the years. It's just so easy to measure out things like coconut oil, syrups, jams and things like that. With the old-fashioned scales that I used to bake with when I was very young, you had to juggle between one container and another, ending up with lots of sticky containers and too much washing up. Anyway, I'm rambling. Let's get back to the recipe. It's one of those recipes that you put all the wet ingredients together and all the dry ingredients and then mix them up. I've used my ½ teaspoon measure here because my teaspoon measure doesn't fit into the cinnamon jar. The cinnamon brings out the flavour of the fudge, and it goes really well in these cakes. The trick here is not to overmix it. This mixture is quite forgiving, and if there are little lumps of flour in the finished mix, no problem. You don't taste them in the cakes. Now for that lovely fudgy bit that we find in the centre of each of these cakes. I like to use the salted fudge. I think it gives a far nicer flavour. When you chop it up, chop it quite small, but save some of the nice proper square pieces for decorating on the top. First, put just a teaspoon of the mixture into each cupcake. Make sure the base is covered. Then just pop a couple of little pieces of fudge into the centre of each one. When you pop the second teaspoon of mixture on top of the fudge, make sure it covers it. It's nice to have bits of fudge oozing out of the top of the cake when they come out of the oven, but you don't want to lose all the fudge. Bake for about 20 minutes. You don't want to leave these in too long or they might dry out. They don't get very brown on the top, so don't worry about that. We're going to decorate them later. Leave them for about 10 minutes to cool and then take each one carefully out of the bun tray. You might find they stick a little bit because some of the fudge does ooze out. But I like this. Makes them nice and rustic and even more tempting to eat. These little cakes need to cool completely before you decorate them, so you can be starting the cream cheese frosting while they cool off. First, make sure that your butter is lovely and soft. I always cream it a little bit with the whisk just to make sure. It's useful to have a bowl handy to rest your sieve on in between mixing. But you've seen me make this before, and there's always some kind of mess at the end of it. Because of its nature, icing sugar will always make a mess when you sieve it and when you mix it. If you don't want to make a mess, you can use a stand mixer and put a tea towel over it to try and stop the cloud of dust. Or you could even mix it by hand, but I'm not doing that. So, mix your icing sugar in bit by bit. It will take quite a lot of icing sugar. I've used about 750 grams here. It needs to be of a consistency where it can stand up by itself. It's getting there now. It's getting harder to mix. Give it a final mix. Yeah, that's about right. Don't overfill your piping bag. Just drop little spoonfuls in until it's about half full. Scrunch up the top, and before you do any piping, it needs to cool a bit in the fridge, so it's not quite so soft. Just a little bit of topping on these. I don't want to make them too sweet because I am going to add other things as well. You can decorate these with anything really, but I find a nice little bit of dark chocolate and an extra bit of fudge does the trick. Well, there you go, a handful of little fudge cakes. These keep for about 3 or 4 days in an airtight container, but I think you'll be lucky if they last that long. They'll all be eaten as soon as the family know you've made them. If you're enjoying my videos, do subscribe. Well, have a good week, and I'll catch you next Monday.